What's happening, everyone? Welcome on back to the channel. Hope you're having a lovely day today, especially because it's another full album listen day. Listen, doesn't come every day, doesn't come every week, but every once in a while we do a full album listen. And today we are going to dive into Solid State Survivor, Yellow Magic Orchestra, this being their second studio album released in 1979. We've listened to a little bit of Yellow Magic Orchestra, not a lot, but we have done a few tracks from them, one of them actually being a live version of their third track on this album, Rydyen. So we have heard that particular track, but besides that, looking at the album and the track list, all of this will be new territory to explore. So I'm really excited to get into this because I've been wanting to listen to a little bit, of course, from Yellow Magic Orchestra, and I've wanted to dive into a little bit more from the solo band members. Of course, Ryuichi Sakamoto, I'm slightly familiar with him, but I'd like to get more acquainted. We've listened to Yukihiro Takahashi's album, which is so good, Neuromantic. That's a great album, and I'm so glad that we've done that one. So yeah, I just figured why not, instead of exploring so much of the solo work, let's kind of come back to the band, listen to that, and perhaps we'll explore more from there. So, this album wasn't necessarily recommended by anyone, even though there may have been. But I'm just doing this more because of my own personal interest. So, hope that you guys are alongside for the ride. Hope that you enjoy it. And yeah, that's the opening. So, without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive on into that first track, which is going to be Technopolis. Technopolis. That sounds about right. Let's go. Right into it. This album's gonna be a mover. Oh yeah. You can hear the Nintendo influence, like how Nintendo would be influenced by them. What a great melody. You got the vocoder, you got the slap bass. Spelling it out. You're moving. Don't tell me you're not. The spelling out part is funny. It's like the spelling out is slightly slower than the beat. That's all right. I love that. Okay. All right, you hear that beat where it's going. All right. I'm pretty sure that just based off the first track and what little I know of Yellow Magic Orchestra, I'm just guessing that this album's going to be a mover. It's going to be a shaker. It's going to get JP dancing in his seat, and I hope that it gets some of you maybe onto your feet. Listen, this is probably going to be an album that you're going to see a lot of movement, a lot of physical action here on screen. So just a warning, because the rhythm is hitting. Where to begin? The really brilliantly fun melody. Bum, 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 bum. Then hit it higher. Bum, 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 bum. Or bum. What a really fun melody and chorus to return to in this electronic song. I don't know, this might be me reaching a little bit, but the name of the song, Technopolis, to me is kind of perhaps an ode to Kraftwerk with Metropolis off of Man Machine. I like this a lot. The bass, just a little bit of slap in there. The vocoder being used. When they're spelling out Technopolis, it's like it sounds at least slightly behind the music. Like just slightly out of pace, but whatever, ain't mad at it. And then Sakamoto on the synthesizers, the keyboards, all the different sounds that he's making in there. It's just so fun to listen to. You have some background during that chorus part, that background, like I don't know what that is. I'm sure that's perhaps Sakamoto as well, but I don't want to presume. Then you have Harumi Hosono on the bass guitar, and he also handles some of the keyboards, some of the vocoder as well. Now, actually thinking about it, Hosono is probably the only member looking at them that I'm not really familiar with him, at least in other work or anything like that, but I am enjoying his bass work here. And then, of course, Yukihiro, his drumming is fun, brings that pop, brings the rhythm. This is a fun song. The lyrics is just repeating Tokyo and then repeating the spelling out of Technopolis. Let's see, there may be some fun facts about this particular track. It says that this was the first Japanese Yellow Magic Orchestra single released in 1979. It was Sakamoto's attempt at making a hit song. He had deconstructed and analyzed several Pink Lady songs before coming up with this particular track. I've never heard of Pink Lady, but that is perhaps the inspiration here, according to this. It says that this is a popular example of Japanese vocoder use. The phrase Tokyo imitates the announcement at a train station. Okay, I would have never even thought about that. The spelling of Technopolis is pronounced at a tempo that divides the 11 beats into exactly 10. So I'm assuming that's why it sounds like it's slightly off then, and yet it still fits in the music, you know? Okay, great start off. Let's move on into the next track here, which is going to be Absolute Ego Dance. Okay, let's go. That's an interesting sound. Turn the party up. interesting production on those drums. Almost like they're sampled in a way. So cheerful. When it hits into that groove and it locks in, it hits. That's a bouncy bass rhythm. This album is going to be just this cheerful, bouncy, positive, fun. Listen, that's what this album is going to end up being just based off these first two tracks. It is just so unanimously happy, and it's wearing a big old smile on its face as I'm imagining the band and the group are putting these songs together and coming up with these fun, such lighthearted melodies. The rhythm from the bass is just bouncing, and then occasionally, like it's so fun and dancing, and that's why I said, like, I can't imagine you not tapping your foot at least a few times listening to this album. I feel like you're going to be. There was some squammy sounds in the very beginning that I will tell you I didn't like because they were just so high pitched, but fortunately, that it moved on from that pretty quickly, even though it was reintroduced at the very end. It's okay, it's the very end. But that was like the only part of the track that I didn't like. But besides that, yeah, it's gold. We're good from here. This is going to be a great album listen. And it's not even necessarily like, when I say this, I don't mean this at all in a derogatory way, but it's not even that deep. It's just a fun, rhythmic cascade of smiles that you're listening to here. In the lyrics, there's not really anything that I can say that to get into, but at some point they're just saying happy happy, masasa hayo, siesta hayo. That's it. there's nothing really to say in here. Now it does say, as on one of the notes here, it says traditional chanting phrases for Ryukyukian Isa dance and music that accompanies it. In traditional Isa chanting, there are often some phrases that mean something, but the phrases on Absolute Ego dance don't have a specific meaning. Their role is to put emphasis on the rhythm and to hype up the crowd, which I would say I'm feeling decently hype. Let's go ahead and listen to the next song, which is the one that I have heard, which is going to be Rydyen. Let's go. It's so good though. Listen to that thick pulse beneath it. This is the dance floor filler. It's such an addictive melody. How do you not get sick of this line? Big melody. This is so good. And this little Sega Genesis breakdown. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Tap your feet. Move your head. Neck hurts. All right, I know I've heard this song already, but can you just say that this is such a banger of a track? This, to me, like, this gives me a neck ache. This is a floor filler. This is a stand on the sidelines at the bar with your friends, but you need to get on the floor, dance floor kind of killer. This is not Steve Miller. This is Ryuichi Sakamoto. This is like just such a banger of the track. And what I love is the depth when it comes to not only the sounds and the melodies, of course, but the production. They're masters at melody, masters of bringing back that reoccurring chorus, those reoccurring themes, the bang, 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 bang. Like, it is just so catchy. They are just masters at that, really, at their craft. And what I like is that, yes, in a sense, it's dance music, but don't let that simplify what they're doing here. Because there's so many other sounds that they bring into their music. You have those main verse, chorus melodies, but then there's so many other... There's so much other diversity of synths and keys and different sound effects you hear. At some points, especially like in the breakdown there, it sounds like they bring in like a Sega Genesis and just start putting in sounds from there. Which, I wouldn't doubt that video game systems that came out from that point forward were inspired by not only electronic artists like Yellow Magic Orchestra, but Kraftwerk and whoever else was out there at the time. You know, like, you can get that sense here in the music, and Rydyen just feels to me like such a centerpiece. I know it's the third track, like we're not at the center yet, but we're in, and I think this is a track that'll keep you in if you were to be listening to this for the first time. Rydyen is just incredible. Really, really good track. I want to see if this was a single here on the album, but I don't necessarily see that it was. So, even though I would think that this song would be, I don't know, I feel like this would be a single. Oh, okay. So it was the second single after Technopolis and I guess the title track, Solid State, Survivor. So, okay. All right, let's move on into the next track here, which is going to be ending side 1 of the album, and that's going to be Castalia. Here we go. This is that smooth electronic R&B pulling you back. Kind of like a cyberpunk noir kind of sound, doesn't it? Sad neon lights under a downfall of rain. That may be Mellotron back there. I'm not sure. That kind of haunting vocal sound. Oh, this is good. This is wonderful. Okay. I don't know why I made that face. Castalia is such a cool track to listen to after the pumped up, energetic writing to come down to what I'm going to describe as, like I said, this cyberpunk, cyber noir, kind of walking through this dimly lit neon city under the rainfall, hustling under, I don't know, different lights and clothes signs and things. I don't know, there's just a certain vision that this track gives me. And one, I love how tonally different this is compared to everything else. Scenery, it's a total of 180 from what we've heard before in the previous 3 tracks. But this is also a nice piece of reflection, a nice piece of moment that it gives us to rest, recollect our thoughts, take a breath, ponder a little bit, wander a little bit before we move on to the second side of the album. I'll tell you right now, this is my second favorite track on the album so far. We've only listened to 4, but this is my second favorite track on the album. I love its moodiness. I love the shift from the previous track, but also these kind of haunting, desperate keys that are just echoing in the darkness. The synth buzzes that come in constantly in that middle section before relegating back to that dum dum dum. What I find with Yellow Magic Orchestra so far is that a lot of their melodies are relatively simple, straightforward, and yet it's so impactful in the way that they use those melodies. Listening to, for example, to this song, it reminds me of the few works that I would hear Sakamoto go into later on with his perhaps solo piano work, his soundtracks, etc., etc. And I just think that this is kind of a cool little peek into, obviously, the band at the time. I don't know, did Sakamoto write this one? I don't know if he did or not, but if he did, I would argue you get a peek into his mind and perhaps where he would go in the future. It's kind of like, to bring this all full circle, it's kind of like how you would, of course, have peeks into the mind of David Sylvian in Japan, especially as their career moved forward, especially ending in Tin Drum, and you can easily see where he would jump off, go do his solo work, Gone to Earth, and all those other albums afterwards. You could see where that would go, and you could see that path. This, to me, is kind of that similar treading. You see the path of where, at least to me, Sakamoto would go later on. Anyways, really, really wonderful first side of the album. Let's go ahead and dive into the second side. But before we do, I like to do one of those little tests to see who's still watching at this particular time. The only test I could think of, and I know I've used this test before, but my test is, do I look like a banana because I'm wearing yellow pants? I'm like all yellow. I look like the guy that watches over Curious George, I feel, because I'm yellowed out right now. Anyways, I didn't really have a question, I guess. I should have said, like, what fruit do I look like? But the answer should be banana, I guess, but I feel like there's going to be some creative answers with that. Anyways, let's move on to the second side of the album, starting off with the first track here, Behind the Mask. Let's go. Vocoder again. This almost disco-ish beat on the verse. so singable too. I like how Behind the Mask built up like a cake. It built up with the instruments coming in, layering upon themselves, and then fully getting into the groove, into the beat, into the rhythm and the swing of things. I just like that. Like when you turn the album over proverbially, like it comes off of that moody Castalia, and then it brings in everything slowly. Like it's a slow reintroduction. Gets lightly and slowly reacquainted with everything. But a slow cooker this is not, as when it gets fully into its groove, it fully gets into its groove. The main melody, once again, that main lead, that like that main melody that comes in, I'm not going to continue on. When that comes in, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of older American 50s and 60s sci-fi alien abduction kind of sounds. Like, you know, when the theremin would come in and it would be like, it would be like, or, you know, that old 50s alien kind of sound. You know what I'm talking about. And then that guy in the deep narrator voice would be talking about aliens have landed in Roswell in 1955 and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, anyways, that's what the sound, the main lead here, reminded me of. If you were to switch out the synth that it was using with a theremin, I think you would get that same effect there. But I think that, once again, you have that relatively straightforward melody that just overrides and overpowers and takes over everything in the most positive of ways. When it gets into the verse, you have the vocoder returning. I'm not sure who's leading on that because they're all credited with vocoder at some point, so I can't say who's doing what, who is singing on that particular point. But I like how the beat changes as well. And with that pulsy bass, it turns into what I would say is like more of like a disco kind of beat, that wom, 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 wom. You know, like a disco song typically has that kind of sound, that bass that's like wom, 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 wom. Does that make sense? That's what I'm feeling there, and I like it. Now, there is a Wikipedia article for this particular track. It says that Sakamoto wrote the first version for a television commercial. Of course, it was expanded. Actually, with British lyricist Chris Mosdell for the inclusion on this album. So Chris had a hand in this. This is interesting. In the early 1980s, Michael Jackson recorded a version with extra lyrics and melodies. It was omitted from his album Thriller as no royalty arrangement could be agreed. Jackson's demo was released on the album Thriller 40 in 2022. And then a lot of other artists have recorded versions. Eric Clapton, Human League. That is really, really cool. That is awesome. Can you imagine if they had come to an agreement? I know that YMO did very well on their own, I'm sure. But can you imagine if they came to an agreement and Michael Jackson's version of this song was on Thriller? You know how much royalty money I would imagine like YMO would get from that? That's awesome. I haven't even looked at the lyrics, but it says Mosdell based his lyrics on the imagery of the traditional Japanese no mask and a poem by the Irish poet W.B. Yeats. Says the mask. Mosdell said that he was talking about a very impersonal, socially controlled society, a future technological era, and the mask represented that immobile, unemotional state. Let's take a look at those lyrics since I didn't do that before. Now the mask you're wearing is Estonian staring, lines and tears, age and fears. Growing old, passions cold, now the mask you're wearing is Estonian staring. This repeats from there. There is nothing in your eyes that marks where you cried. All is blank, all is blind. Dead inside the inner mind, there is nothing in your eyes. Oh, it just repeats from there. It is me, it is you behind the mask, I ask. Is it me? Is it you? Who wears another face? Is it me or is it you behind the mask? So, the obvious things, you know, wearing a mask, hiding your face, hiding your true self, your feelings, looking cold, looking unemotional, but who are you behind the mask? Who am I behind the mask? The music's cool. Let's move on into the next track here, which is going to be Day Tripper, which I know is a song from the Beatles. I don't know it. I've never heard it, so I have no comparison. I know this is the part where people say, how have you not heard? There's so many songs I haven't heard. But yeah, so I can't compare it as a cover, but we'll listen to it regardless and judge it by its own merits. It's a cool intro, though, I'll tell you that. Sounds like underwater. Kind of cool. I like how we bring in more guitars on this track. Makes sense. Okay, that part right there where the music kind of glitches out, which we had but a little bit before in Day Tripper, I think that is one of the coolest sounds. I love when a band, any band in any genre, does something like that where the music almost breaks down. I just think that that sounds so cool. I hear that a lot, especially now, like obviously in electronic music, but even in like metal and stuff, like I just think that it's such cool, or so cool. Anyways, all right, such cool. Put that on a t-shirt. So like I said, I don't know the Day Tripper, so I can't like compare it to the original. What I can say is that I like the inclusion, the more thorough inclusion, I should say, with the guitars being added in here. And production-wise, you still have multiple guitars almost like hitting different sides of the stereo, which is just a really nice technique to still retain some of that electronic influence, of course, here with YMO, but kind of you know, pay homage, of course, in covering this track as well. You hear the bluesy scale in there. I don't know who's singing in this track. Could be Yukihiro, just because I guess I always go to Yukihiro because I know that he sings in English, so I don't know if that is him here or not. If not, it could be Haruomi Hosono, but I'm not sure. Either way, singing sounded nice. It wasn't as filtered as like through the vocoder, which I thought was kind of refreshing, but it still had a little bit of that effect in there, which I think worked really well for the song. To be honest, it's not my favorite song on the album, but I don't think it's bad at all. It just kind of exists, I'm being honest. Now, I do see that you do have someone playing electric guitar on this particular track that is not any of the main three. That would be Makoto Ayukawa. So that's that. Now, that's that. Oh, I should look at the lyrics, huh? She was a day tripper, yeah, one-way ticket. It took me so long to find out, and I found out. To find out, I found out. Got a good reason for taking the easy way out. Got a good reason for taking the easy way out now. and it just repeats actually from there. So don't know what it means. It says that this particular version is based on Otis Redding's version, mixed in with influences from Devo. You know what? It didn't connect in my mind, but Devo makes so much sense with how this sounds. Oh. Vocals mechanically process the falsetto sung in Takahashi's octave unison with a harmonizer, much to his disgust. Oh. You learn something new every day. Next track, which is going to be Insomnia. Let's go. I like how the drum came in slightly off, or different. Another moody kind of setting, but slightly more bouncy than Castalia. I will tell you, I really enjoy the more rhythmic, dance-oriented songs that we get from the band. But these moodier pieces like Castalia and now Insomnia, they hit a little bit different, and I really enjoy when the group kind of settles into an atmosphere and they create, like I said, a musical scenery. Here, it retains a little bit of the same moodiness, I would say, from Castalia, but this track, I mean, it actually really does do a great job of capturing the idea of a sleepless night, and not just one sleepless night, but several, perhaps straight in a row. It has this spooky, haunting kind of restlessness to it, just the way that the music moves. This is gonna sound weird and possibly stupid, but it sounds like a Boo level in a Mario game. You know what I'm talking about? Like, remember in Mario 64, you go to Boo's mansion, or what it was called? Like, this would be the type of music that would be playing. Luigi's Mansion, this is the type of music that would be playing. Like, it's spooky, still rhythmic, but it just kind of moves in this more haunting kind of manner, but not scary. Like fun haunted. You know? Like Casper the Friendly Ghost kind of haunted. But I really like that. And for example, one of those synths that comes in, if you were to replace that with an organ and you replace some of the other instruments with other, for lack of a better word, acoustic instruments, you would have, like, I don't know, some sort of goth rocky kind of Transylvanian sound. But because of their electronic focus, like, it comes across a lot differently and just with a different shade of the same kind of topic or feel. I think that it sounds really good. And it's a little bit over 3 minutes in which the vocals come in, which are pretty straightforward. Just, you know, cannot sleep at all. I'm insomniac. I'm just alive beneath these caffeine eyes. I'm an insomniac. Pretty straightforward. And I really like the use of the vocoder in this track because you still get a feeling behind whoever is singing. You still hear, like, the emotion behind them. And even though not a lot is said, not a lot is sung, and it stays at a sort of middle ground in the singing regard, but I like the mood that it evokes alongside with the actual music here. This is going to be something completely random. It's just a random thought I thought of while I was listening to this song. And I wonder, back in the 80s when this was released, or any vocoder, obviously in the 70s as well, and possibly even earlier, when, like, vocoders and stuff came out, did people rage against vocoders as much as some people rage as much against, like, auto-tune now? Like, I'm just curious. I feel like anytime any sort of change happens in music, or really anything, old guard, I will say, gets upset, like, oh, you're making it easier. Like, classical musicians are probably looking at rock stars like, oh, now you're just taking these guitars and doing this, you're not writing music down. I feel like that's just a generational thing. Anyways, let's move on into the final track of the album, which is the title track, Solid State Survivor. We will listen to it, we will move to it, we will talk about it. Let's do so now. The listening part. Kind of keeps that moodiness a little bit, huh? Just pumps it up. Sounds like Bill Nelson. Doesn't it?
The strangers of the strangers, second and
This part, for some reason, reminds me of Bill Nelson's music. It's a bad phone line. We got a bad connection. You gotta hang up the phone. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Solid State Survivor. That is the title track, the ending of the album. What I really like is how the mood from this track still carried on in the beginning from that bass. It still carried on from the previous track. It kept that moodiness, but then it just made it more up-tempo. And it never lost that throughout the whole track. So the singing here I do see is by Yukihiro Takahashi, which I did mention this before when we listened to his solo album, Neuromantic. Excuse me. But his singing alongside parts of the music reminds me a lot of Bill Nelson's music, which I think is really cool because, like I said, I mentioned that before when we listened to his album. And this album, or not this album, this song doesn't stand out as much as the previous tracks, but I do think that it still hits the mark as an effective closer with the continuity that we had established. I would say actually from the beginning of the second side, you do have a certain connection that continues on throughout the rest of this album at this point. I guess in a sense, now that I'm thinking about it, the first side of the album kind of felt like singles. This one felt like, it reminds me of like Low by Bowie. Like the first side is like kind of typical synth pop songs like singles or whatever, and then the second side is perhaps a little bit more experimental, kind of goes into a different direction. At least that's what I kind of feel now that I thought about that. Yeah. And then at the very end of this, I don't know what kind of phone connection you got, but you had a bunch of very, very distorted voices in there that were saying something. I didn't see any lyrics on that part. Whatever they're saying sounded like distorted dolphins. But it all adds into the whole scenery, the whole setting of the music, which I think the band did a fantastic job of not only keeping things, of course, to a certain degree of who they are, but experimenting a little bit, pushing those boundaries, to me, especially in those more moodier tracks, I would say. The lyrics on this one: minds blind, empty eyes, cracked smiles, black tongues ablaze. No names, breathing dreams, standing in line, cracked smiles. The strangest of the strangers, second-hand teenagers, face to face they face a chemical race. And Marilyn Monroe's not home, so I sit alone with the video, and Tokyo Rose is on the phone dressed to kill. And then it repeats from there. I have no idea what this song is talking about, and to be honest, I couldn't even say. Solid State Survivor, you're a survivor of solid state, of something? I can't I can't help on that one. I have no idea, to be honest. It does say here that the album's title song is a new wave synth rock song. Dragon Ball Z, interestingly enough, later paid homage to the song in the album with the song Solid State Scouter as the theme song to the 1990 television special Bardock, the Father of Goku. Did I see that one? I probably saw that a long time ago on Toonami. Anyways, it says that this album won Best Album Award at the 22nd Japan Record Awards, and it sold 2 million copies. Listed as one of the 10 Japanese albums worthy of inclusion on the Rolling Stones 500 Greatest Albums of All Time. You can definitely hear just how influential this album would be, of course, in 1979, and going beyond that to where it would go. Favorite songs on this album? So easily, Rydyen, Castalia, and I would say Insomnia. Those are very easily my favorite tracks. Rydyen is just that banger that goes hard. I had to put some extra on that. And then the two moodier tracks, I really enjoy the scenery. I keep on using that word, but I do enjoy what they put out there. So yeah, great album. I enjoyed listening to this. I can't imagine you didn't move your foot a little bit, nod your head at some point. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. Let me know your thoughts on the album in the comments below. You're more than welcome and invited, as a matter of fact, to follow me here on the channel. You can subscribe, press the like button. If you'd like, you can follow me over on Twitter. You can also support the channel and what I do on Patreon. As always, I appreciate your presence, and your presence is appreciated, and I hope that you come back and return tomorrow, guys. Have a great day.